Okay, alright guys. I just have a few quick moments. So let's talk about the crashing and burning, the disaster of a disaster film, Moonfall, which is now in the records of how much money it's going to lose. Let's talk about it now. Alright folks, welcome to this little piece of news here about the film Moonfall. Now I saw the film Moonfall back in February, but it looks like it's finishing up its theatrical run with a roughly $39 to $40 million box office take, which means that it will officially be one of the biggest flops of all time. This is a movie that just did not make what it was supposed to make. It had a rough budget of about $140 million. Now let's talk about what exactly that means. Conservatively speaking, I like to think that movies spend half of their budget additionally on marketing. So if it did that, it probably cost about $210 million in total to produce the film, market it. 140 for the production, probably about 70 million for the marketing. Some people claim it's about the full production, so it's about 280. I don't know if I believe that so much, but I will say about 210 is a conservative number. Now that's $39.2 million. Let's just round up to 40. Theaters usually take about 50% of that cut, so the theaters are going to make about $20 million off this film, which means $20 million is going to the studios that made it, which means that the film has at its best day probably lost $190 million. Now, these numbers are always kind of in flux, and many studios won't talk about their marketing budgets. They don't really talk about like how much money it's made, how much money it's not made, what have you. But this movie, I would guess a take probably will lose $190 million at the end of the day. Which, you know, let's be fair. The movie's not good. It's a bad movie, and it's a bad movie that's not aware that it's a bad movie. It's one that's trying to be better than it is, and that's one of the biggest problems with it, is that the movie is strictly not having fun with this preposterous idea. It is just a movie that should have been way more enjoyable, more fun, more in line with 2012, Roland Emmerich's other previous disaster film of note. It should have been more fun like that, and instead it took itself way too seriously and just was kind of bogged down with not being funny, not being fun, not being entertaining, and just being way too dark for a movie about the moon attacking Earth. It's a stupid idea for a movie, and if you knew that when you were making it, you could have made it a stupidly fun good time. This unfortunately wasn't the case for Moonfall. Now, yeah, this epic bomb of it is just going to be really rough for it and a lot of other people around. But it's going to come down to the response. People did not like this movie. And even myself, I went in peak ready for this. Like, I thought those trailers looked so much fun. I was all in on the goofiness of the plot. I was embracing it. There were people in my theater that walked out of it. And I don't know if it's bad enough as a walkout. It's tough for me to claim because I've never walked out of a movie before, but I don't think this was walkout worthy. But it's still a disappointing overall take. And part of that is the fact that the movie just wasn't very good, and it wasn't very well regarded, and I'm not alone in thinking it wasn't very good. A lot of people who saw it just kind of felt it's a bit of a dud, which is disappointing, and I think part of it too is we've got all these filmmakers that come out and they get asked about the Marvel thing. I get it. Not all of them are coming out just saying we're going to hate on Marvel movies, but I do think that it's frustrating when you have someone like Roland Emmerich who makes a movie like Moonfall and then criticizes the Marvel formula and the superhero formula and how everyone's making remakes and everyone's making sequels, and that's what's destroying the movie business. Moonfall's kind of a bad ripoff of every other Roland Emmerich movie that's been made. So, to be fair, the movie is not the worst thing ever, but I don't see myself ever being interested enough to watch it again. It's a very disappointing entertainment and thrill ride. It just did not entertain and did not thrill. But do I think the movie deserved to lose $190 million? Yeah, it's not that amount of bad. But you had to know making this movie that it just, I don't know if it had a chance. And in the pandemic era, unfortunately, that's where these kinds of things can crash and burn. They can really struggle. And Lionsgate, who distributed the film, don't have a good standing streaming service to throw it onto. None of the studios involved were really involved on how do we mitigate the disaster that is Moonfall, and I think that's probably it too, is that most of these services, if a movie's not doing well, they can launch it. You know, the 355 hit Peacock really quick after dropping in theaters. Redeeming Love is on Peacock now, I think. The new Scream film, which actually performed very well, is already on Paramount Plus because they're kind of like, let's get it out in theaters for the people that want to see it now, and then let's shuffle it to a service and then get it out on home video. Like, they've got this cadence to the release date that usually can save them some problems, but the thing is, Moonfall doesn't have that. Lionsgate doesn't have a specific streaming service to roll with. So it's kind of the blessing and the curse of streaming services is some of those services will end up saving some of these movies and the losses that they would gather. That's not the case for this one. What did you think about Moonfall? Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on the film. What's your favorite Roland Emmerich movie? And do you think this movie deserves to lose $190 million? I'd like to know your thoughts down below. And while you're down there, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It's 2 free things that you can do that can help my channel grow a little bit more, and that can also help you ensure that you never miss a new episode of the show as it drops. You can find my film reviews at goatfilmreviews.com. Don't forget to check out Goat Film Reviews over on Facebook, and you can follow me personally at Almighty Goatman on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. And don't forget to check out my show, Kyle and Nick on Film, where Nick Plotachuk and I discuss various movies from the last couple weeks. We recently talked about The Batman. We recently talked about Brick and Terror Train. And you can check all that stuff out by clicking the links down in the description. We'll see you later.